Explorer's been hit. Explorer, do you read? Explorer, over. Explorer.
We first got involved with Gravity back end of 2010. We just completed the conversion of Narnia. They were just in the shoot phase, or the early production phase of the show, and at that point they were having to make some big decisions about how they move forward.
Nicky Penny, the executive producer on Gravity, approached us about doing a test conversion. They'd had a 3D test shoot, and what they wanted us to do was to convert one of the eyes from the test shoot. The challenges through shooting stereo inside a capsule became apparent on the set, and I think combined with all the visual effects that were going to be required, the environments which were going to be recreated, they felt they wanted to look at their options, whether to shoot stereo or to convert stereo.
Stereo rigs have a form factor which is quite large, especially 3 years ago when they started shooting this. They were even bigger. I mean, nowadays they've actually shrunk a lot. They're still quite large. The live action in this movie was all shot inside a capsule. It's a very tight, confined environment. Really fitting that rig in and getting it to all the positions you'd need it to was very awkward.
When the technology starts to potentially hinder the filmmaking, then it's up to us as the creatives on the side of the industry to look for new solutions to that.
And Alfonso came in and we showed him the test footage which he converted, and I think the feeling was it was working really well and they were really pleased with the results.
They looked exactly the same, if not better, so immediately it solved the problem of shooting. They could now shoot in mono. They could choreograph and stage these scenes as they wanted, knowing that when they got into full post, their stereo conversion was going to look absolutely fantastic and sit really well with their full stereo CG.
Chris Parks had built the kind of depth plan. That's what he had in his mind. For me personally, the experience working with Chris was great because he was seeing details and things to him in stereography particularly are not always about the depth in the shot. It's very much about the depth in the character, the object you're looking at.
The biggest tackle on that side was to merge these two stereo elements, the full CG and the stereo converted material as well, and make sure there's total integrity and continuity between those two formats.
We had meetings early on at Framestore with Nicky Penny and Tim Webber, the VFX supervisor there, working out about what kind of assets were available, what we could share, what we could use, and how we were going to approach certain shots.
So they would have been passing a lot of their tests to us as well, various comp tests. How does this breath that's coming out of Sandra Bullock's mouth when the capsule starts to freeze, how's that going to look if we do it as multiple layers? A single layer, can we convert it? Do we want to see internal depth? Is it going to be mixing with any of the light in certain ways? If we grade it before or afterwards? So there was a lot of creative and technical questions which they were trying to work through.
Because the VFX is live, there was a lot of extra passing back and forth of assets. We had a helmet which had glass on it, and the reflections in the glass they wanted to retain stereo properties of with stereo CG. Now, to stereo render CG and put it into stereo converted imagery, you have to see the conversion and you need a camera which matches the conversion. To arrive at the stereo rig that works with conversion meant a huge amount of mathematical effort, entirely new mathematical modeling for us to be able to do it.
Because with all these pipelines, you don't want to seriously complicate it anyway. You don't want to then add extra layers of complication. So by You know, partnering with the co-creatives on a show as well, you seek those solutions together.
I've lost visual, Dr. Stone.
For Chris, as a native stereographer working in conversion, you know, some of these tools and the flexibility is kind of maybe newer to him. And I think he really enjoyed, you know, being able to control the images like we did. We could show Chris, like, this is how it would look if you shot it with you know, a stereo rig. And from this point here, we can then start manipulating the environment or the characters a little bit more, being able to achieve what he wants out of stereo, but maybe able to achieve some things which he might not be able to capture.
Natively shooting, I think the single biggest disadvantage that directors and producers don't like is that you have to lock your stereo on set. That's a very unnatural thing to do because the set's a very unnatural place. You wouldn't lock your sound on set and try and do live sound. You wouldn't try and lock your grade on set and do gels on the lights. Because there's so much extra of added value by having a good Foley sound and good soundtrack, and by having a grade put on your film, and by adding stereo to your film. These extra devices are best really crafted and added on afterwards.
To achieve a lot of the things we did on Gravity, you'd have to have a multi-camera shoot, which would be kind of nigh on impossible for this kind of stuff. Through conversion, you're able to let the director work in the way which he's familiar with, and the DOPs, for example, they're just there with, you know, they're there with the cameras, they're able to move them around in the way they normally do. They don't have to sort of slow down the process by using bulky cameras or stereo rigs.
Explorer, do you copy?
Using the 3D to enhance the feeling of claustrophobia, you know, we were really able to bring the focus onto the character. I mean, we still want to get some sort of depth and separation with the environment, but if you can sort of pull that in and bring the sort of viewer's attention onto the character by using that sort of sculpting and the animation and really feeling those subtleties and the depth of the character, I think it really leads for a very intense kind of intimate moment.
As far as 3D goes, Gravity's a game changer. In terms of filmmaking, it's a game changer as well. You'll watch it in 10 years' time and still be blown away by how spectacular it is and be proud that you were part of that, however big or small.
What is unique about Gravity really is the level of detail and being able to achieve creatively for Chris and Alfonso, and also our partnership with Framestore and our relationships with them really put Prime Focus in a position where there was no one else better to do the job.
Tell her that I'm not quitting.